Thank you for joining us. My name is Steve McDonald. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Marketing here at UJA. We're so grateful that you were able to join us for today's presentation. And as you saw from our email, we really want to focus today's call on security in the Canadian, or in the Toronto Jewish community specifically. And of course, security is on the minds of many in the community, as it is for all of us here at UJA, especially in the context of the Walk with Israel coming up. And we're very, very fortunate to be joined today by Inspector Jack Gurr and a number of members of the Toronto Police Service team who are really, really critical partners for us in planning for the security needs of the community and ensuring that police understand what's happening in our community and what we're experiencing, but also in ensuring that we're able to understand the threats facing our community, what we need to know to keep ourselves safe. And so we really rely on partners like Inspector Gurr and others at Toronto Police, as well as York Regional Police, to tell us what we need to know and what we should be sharing with our network of community institutions, as well as our broad community lists. And so we're very, very grateful to be joined by Inspector Gurr. Before we introduce Inspector Gurr to share some thoughts and reflections and insights on what Toronto has been doing to safeguard the Jewish community, especially post-October 7th, as well as the plan and what we're working on to ensure that the Walk with Israel is as safe and smooth as possible for our community. I want to preface this by sharing just a little bit about UJA community security and what it is that we do to ensure the community is safe. Many people will be familiar with UJA community security. We're often sending out emails from the team providing insights into breaking developments and challenges that are coming up. But I really just want to remind everyone that security is a collective enterprise. UJA community security is here to ensure that everyone in the community, whether it's a day school, a synagogue, the JCCs, or individual community members, have access to resources and expert guidance in the event of security incidents taking place, but also to ensure that we're able to take preventative measures and preparedness before incidents arise. So our security team is constantly providing training sessions and advice and guidance to institutions, including site audits and enabling institutions to understand what they should be doing to protect themselves. But with that, the security team is also regularly communicating with the whole community. When we learn about an incident taking place in one part of the city that we think has implications for the community's entire security, we don't hesitate to share that information as broadly and quickly as possible. But with that, we're also constantly speaking with police to understand what's happening and to share with police where we see needs changing in the community and what we are looking to do with our policing partners to elevate our collective security. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce Inspector Gurr. Inspector Gurr, many of you, if you're active online, you'll have seen him on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter, so please follow him at Jack Gurr, Jack Jurr, and then an extra R, so 3 R's. That's his handle on X, and he's very, very quick with updating his followers on what's happening in terms of security developments in the community. But Inspector Gurr plays a particularly special role in terms of Jewish community security. So as he's going to share in a few minutes, after October 7th, Toronto Police Service launched an initiative called Project Resolute. And this has been really at the center of the significant elevated presence of Toronto Police since October 7th in the Jewish community in particular. We've all seen the mobile command units that have been set up along Bathurst Street. But here at UJ, we're also privy to a lot of things that Toronto Police have done that you might not necessarily have seen because they have a multi-layered approach to ensuring the community is safe. One aspect of which is visible presence, but then there are many other things that police are doing behind the scenes to ensure that our community is protected and we can continue living and enjoying this city as everyone in the city has a right to do. Inspector Gurr brings immense experience. He's been with police, Toronto Police, for 27 years, starting as a constable and really rising through the ranks to his current role. And whenever we have a challenge in the community, one of our first calls is going to be to Inspector Gurr to guide us together with his team on what we should be doing and what we should be communicating to all of you. So with that, I want to start by thanking Toronto Police and Inspector Gurr for the risks that you take and for all the hard work that you take on to keep our city safe for everyone. But really, I just want to turn it over to you, Inspector Gurr, to share with us anything that you think would be important for our community to know about the security situation and what Toronto Police are doing to address it in the GTA. And with that, what we should be knowing about the Walk with Israel and really what Toronto Police is doing to help us prepare to ensure that that is the safest possible experience. Over to you, Inspector Gurr.
Thanks, Steve. I want to start by saying, listen, it's important that we have this dialogue. You sent this message, you sent the request into the office of the chief. The chief's office contacted me right away, asked me if I could take on this messaging today. And it's important because since October 7th, that the Jewish community was crippled. The Toronto Jewish community, we have 100,000 just on this side of Steeles, and another 100,000 on the north side of Steeles. I'm acutely aware of the compromise on the feeling of community safety and well-being that has happened since that tragic day. Right after that happened, that threat came out to the Jewish community. It was October 11th that it was released, and then October 12th we had a significant case at one of our high schools in North York where 3 people were arrested. I want to just talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened since October 7th. Steve alluded to the fact that Project Resolute, which I'm one of the leads on in the community, really took place as a result of this tragedy. So October 11th, the threat comes in. October 12th, we then have an arrest very quickly for some threats that were made to some students. And then there was the Friday the 13th, which I know that there were a lot of people who stayed home that day, a lot of people who kept their children home that day, and we felt it. So we are very thankful to have a chief of police, Myron Demkew, and a command team that is very, very strong and very open and receptive to the community, and has really illustrated to the membership of the Toronto Police Service, the men and women, officers and civilian professionals, that we are supported so that we can be out and be effective in the community. Right after that threat came in, we had an emergency meeting in Toronto Police, and you may have noticed that there was a lot of officers, a lot of senior management that had to that we all got out behind our desks and went out on patrol within all of our faith-based facilities, both Muslim and Jewish facilities, and we're out there visible in our white shirts to right away react and show an increased presence at all the locations. There's a number of things that we implemented. Steve alluded to the layered approach, which is very appropriate. Right away, we wrote up an operational plan on how we would deal with, how we would respond to the feeling in the community. Right away, we dropped a couple of command vehicles. Those command vehicles, one is still there at Bathurst, just south of Glencairn. And those were really instrumental because it provided a meeting place for the citizens and for our officers. And it gave us an opportunity to listen, and it gave us an opportunity to speak with the community. And there was a lot of people who came to the command vehicle simply to tell us that they couldn't sleep at night and needed to just to let it out. We put a lot of those people in touch with our victim services team. We have a group of volunteers that work with the Toronto Police Service. Their phone number is 416-808-7066, and I can make that available later if you need. These volunteers will listen. They will provide a referral service, and that was happening on quite a high frequency at our command vehicles. If anybody wants to visit and speak with an officer, they can still do that. And there's an officer there every single day since October 7th. We've had the command vehicle up, and they're welcome to come by, drop by. You don't need an appointment. So we have a group of officers that are out every single day, and this is our community deployment. This is part of the group that I'm in charge of, and those officers are actually visiting all of our faith-based institutions every day. If you work at a synagogue, or, I'm going to refer specifically to the Jewish community because we do have the mosques that are being visited as well. But if you work at a synagogue, if you attend a synagogue or at a Jewish school, you'll see our officers. You will have seen our officers on a regular basis. And I do get quite a bit of feedback that that they're making their presence known, and that they're appreciated. One of the interesting things that I can share with you is that these visits are not scheduled. I don't tell the officers when to go. They are spontaneous by design. The officers don't decide that they're going to have a list of places that they go to every week at a specific time. They show up when they show up, so that nobody knows when they might be there. So hate crimes is, of course, a huge issue, and hate crime is been on the rise since October 7th. We've actually attended over 1,000 calls for service relating to hate crimes. We've also made we've got 244 hate crime occurrences that have ended up in a report, and we've made 77 arrests with 200 charges thus far. So one of the things that people ask me is, why are we not arresting people in the moment? Why are we going to some of these protests and we're not arresting everybody there? Somebody said something that was perhaps unlawful, illegal. What I want to bring to your attention is that a lot of the times we're arresting people, we're laying charges a few days later. It might be a couple of weeks later. It might be several weeks later. And it's interesting to see, people are interested when I explained it this way, that we can't always arrest somebody in the moment. It's just, sometimes it's too dangerous. There's thousands of people at these protests. You got to remember, we've been at over 650 planned and unplanned events, demonstrations and events since October 7th. So that is an extraordinary number that the rest of Canada is not seeing. Toronto is a very unique place, and in one of those protests, we had 50,000 people. So we can't always make an arrest in the moment for officer safety, for the sake of creating a greater disturbance and making an unsafe environment. So frequently, we've got everything that we need. We're collecting evidence. And we would prefer to take a thoughtful approach when we're dealing with criminality, especially at the protests. And you'll see that, like I said, a few days later, a few weeks later, everything is being reported through a news release. And if you follow our news releases, you'll see, and many of those I'm posting on my Twitter, like Steve had mentioned earlier. And you'll see that the arrests are being made for criminality. We don't have a tolerance for criminality in Toronto. So I'll speak a little bit more about the hate crime investigations. Before October 7th, every division had been receiving the hate crime occurrences and investigating them. And after October 7th, the decision was made by command to centralize our investigations relating to hate crime. This was for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is so that we could track and determine trends. In one case, there was somebody that was spray painting an item, derogatory and anti-Semitic spray painting graffiti, and they were doing it consistently and around different areas of the city. And the issue is, if we are investigating it in different silos, different divisions, we may not pick up on it fast enough. But by centralizing our hate crime units investigations and having them all in one place, it's a lot easier to determine those trends. So we actually increased our hate crime unit from 6 investigators to now 32. And like I said, we've already made 77 arrests since October 7th. Another thing that we've been doing is we've created, our corporate communications branch has created actually a campaign for hate crimes. And they've created 8 videos. I was part of a couple of the videos, and it was really to discuss the impact of hate crime on communities, on those affected. And I'm getting some good feedback from those videos and finding that they are being effective. Another thing that we're doing that most people don't know about is we've got a major incident command center that's been up and running every single day, 7 days a week. And that's a group of individuals that I'm also part of. I'm a ground commander, and then we've got people who are monitoring in our headquarters. And we as a group have the ability to move officers around the city, bring in assets, bring in resources that day-to-day operations wouldn't necessarily have that capability of doing. This has been very effective. We've got 4 senior officers that are assigned to that. And just for definitions, a senior officer means an officer in a management position and with sufficient rank to be able to move resources a little bit easier than other members. So this is, we're finding it very, very useful. We've implemented a police liaison team. We've got so many events that are happening on a daily basis that we've actually now created a team through our emergency management and public order branch, where they have they're acting as a liaison to receive information about all the events that we're dealing with. And that way we can have a more effective response and a more efficient deployment of our resources. We are now dealing with the encampment. I know that's going to be a question that's going to come up in the chat, so I'll just briefly touch on that. I was at U of T yesterday for another protest, and as well the day before that. I saw probably many of you on the call at that protest yesterday. So that's an issue that is very topical for us, front of mind. We're working with the University of Toronto to look into options. We are acting as a support to the university right now until the university has some decisions to make, and once those decisions are made, they will be in touch with us, and we'll be able to support them as well as we can. Training, we've started doing some internal training, and this is important for you to know because some of the questions that I get are around what our officers know. Not every officer has grown up in the city of Toronto or has lived in Toronto before coming to work in Toronto. So we've taken a very strong approach to make sure that our officers are educated. And so we now have all of our recruits are meeting with a Holocaust survivor. Thank God that we still have some that can come out and speak to our officers. And as well, we have implemented service-wide training to recognize anti-Semitism and ensure that our officers have the awareness on what that means. Many of you may have worked with an officer, Michelle Gillespie. She is our Jewish liaison officer. She works with our community partnerships and engagement unit, and she's been there for about a year. Many of you are dealing with her, speaking with her, sending her information, sending her your concerns, and I encourage you to do that. She is got a lot of energy and is very receptive and wants to hear from you when you have a concern. She's been at the schools and all the synagogues and is really doing a great job. And Michelle, if you're there, thank you for all the work that you're doing. We also have our consultative committees, and one of which is the Jewish Consultative Committee. This group is comprised of leaders in the Jewish community. They provide us counsel. They let us know when we're doing a great job and when we could improve. They are constantly and consistently dialoguing with us and making themselves available to ensure that we are providing the right deployments and attention where it is most required. Part of the way we work is one of our goals is to be where we're needed most, and the Chiefs Consultative Committee is very effective and helpful in guiding the Toronto Police Service to make sure that we are doing the right thing. The work that, okay, we're going to move into, we can talk a little bit about the walk. The work that that Federation is doing is quite extraordinary. And I want to just mention that we have a very strong partnership and working relationship with UJA Federation, the security team. We do speak quite regularly. The dialogue, the commitment is very strong. The walk with Israel, it's coming up very soon, in about a month. And I've been at the walk numerous times working. I was at the walk last year, the year before, and I've witnessed, been there with the protesters. And I know that there's a very high concern around the walk. I know that many people are considering whether or not they want to attend, they want their children to come. But there's a few things that I'm going to talk about for the walk. So we've already started to plan. We've got an operational plan. Now I know this video, this meeting right now is being recorded. So I have to tell you that I can't divulge, I can't really talk too much about the operational plan that is being developed. Whenever there's a large scale event, an operational plan is created, and in this case, I don't know who's going to be watching. I know this recording is going to be made public. So just for those on this call, be mindful that I won't be able to tell you too many details. But what I can tell you is that Toronto Police is very, very heavily involved. The chief is aware, and we've had many conversations about what we're doing around the walk. We have our emergency management and public order, and I've got two of my colleagues on the call with me today. I've got Derek Ma, Constable Derek Ma, and Staff Sergeant Jared Babineau. They are the ones that are really making sure that we don't miss any vital information, and that we do provide a very thorough plan for the walk. We are committed. Your Toronto Police Service is committed to providing a safe event for all of those attending. We know that we're following the social media. We see the planned protest. We know that there's going to be another protest this year. You can expect to see a large number of officers. I'm not going to tell you where they're going to be, but you will see many officers there. The meetings that we've been having with Federation include the event planning and Federation Director of Campus Security. We have one thing I think that everyone's waiting for me to say, and I'll say it now, is you can, how can I say this? There's going to be people that are going to come to this walk, and if they come to the walk with a criminal intent, if they come with the intent to do anything criminal, they can expect to be arrested and charged. And I think that's important, an important message to convey to everybody on this call. We are going to be there, and we won't be tolerating criminality. So if you're planning to come to the walk, which I encourage you to do, please know that we will be there. And if you see some protesters, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. If you see the protesters, keep in mind they are there to evoke a reaction. Don't take their bait. Don't react to them. Don't try to win an argument. You won't win an argument against somebody who's on the other end of a megaphone, because they're not interested and they're not there to listen. Attend the event with a positive attitude. This is, I think it's the 55th year. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think it's the 55th year of the walk with Israel. And I know that's important. The only year that it was compromised was because of COVID, but I think there was a virtual walk. If you see anything that's of concern, bring it to the attention of an officer right away. They will make a determination if there's any action that's required in the moment or if there's an investigation that needs to be initiated. Jared or Derek, is there anything else that that you may want to share? I think I've said everything that I'm planning to say.
No, Inspector, I think you've covered all the points that need to be highlighted to share with this group.
Okay. Steve, is there anything else? Is there any questions that have come up in the chats that I can address?
For sure. Thank you, Inspector Gurr. That was a great overview. And again, the first thing that's coming across in the chat is multiple people just expressing praise for the police. I mean, I think our community really recognizes that the police have a difficult job to do in ordinary times. We know that resources are limited for the police, and that the deployment of significant support for our community, it does not go unappreciated. We really recognize that police are vital partners in enabling us to continue being safe and publicly and proudly Jewish at a time when it's a scary world often. So let's get right into the walk. People are asking about the walk, whether it's safe for their families. Maybe I'll just start by providing a bit of context as well for kind of how UJA approaches the walk operationally. So I'll start by saying, yes, it's safe for families to participate in the walk. I'll be there with my young kids. We'll be there proudly waving the flag and marching together with thousands of people. As Inspector Gurr said, we've been doing this as a community for 55 years. This is something we've been doing regardless of what's happening in Israel right now. We do it to show just how important Israel is to our identity as Canadian Jews. And really, we want to ensure that that message is loud and is clear to the broader public this year. This may be the most important walk in the history of the walk. And so we don't want anyone to have questions about security and not have those questions answered. We have a very robust plan that we've been working on for months and months now, together with Toronto Police. As Inspector Gurr mentioned, there will be a significant presence of police, as well as private security that UJA pays for, and as well volunteer security personnel that we've trained and deployed. So we're talking about a security presence not in the dozens, but in the hundreds. It will be a massive security complement to ensure that the entire walk route is both patrolled and is safe. There will be significant barriers you'll see in place to ensure the physical protection of the route, and lane closures to ensure the protection of the route. We are not announcing the full route yet. We have the full route mapped out, but we are not publicly announcing it for operational reasons. But what we can tell you is that we've tried to strike the balance between the downtown experience, which we know many people miss, being at the exhibition grounds and being right by the water, but also recognizing that for many people who live in the north end of the city, that's not as easy an option. So we were trying to strike this balance between being visible for the broader city, but also being accessible for the Jewish community in particular. So it's going to be in North York. It will start in North York and it'll proceed up Bathurst and end up at the Sherman campus where I'm sitting right now at 4600 Bathurst. So the post-walk event will be entirely on UJA property. We have full control over the property. People will not be permitted onto the property unless they have permission to attend the post-walk event. That event will continue to be family friendly. We'll have food, we'll have activities. It's also going to be a slightly different event this year because it is a bit more of a somber year. So it's not exactly a party atmosphere. It's going to be a solidarity festival where there'll be opportunities for families to participate in a meaningful way, not just to celebrate Israel, but to show our support for Israelis who are hurting. But you'll see there's going to be a few different things this year because of security reasons. So for example, when we're walking on the route, there won't be traditional walk stops. There will be porta potties at certain locations. There'll be water stations where people can refill, but we encourage you, bring snacks, bring water, make sure you're well equipped for that day, because for security reasons, we want to ensure a smooth walk flow. And the easiest thing for us to do is to not have, in the current circumstances, walk rest stops. But the rest of the walk is really going to be an experience that most people are used to. We do know that the protests that happen every year, and we prepare for them every year, they're not new, are going to be more pronounced this year. They're going to be larger and they're going to be more vocal. But that's where our partners at Toronto Police are so important for us to work with. Their operational plan is quite developed. It's going to put us in a position of a community of being able to proceed unimpeded with our walk, while ensuring that there is a meaningful separation with those who are spreading hate and are protesting at the walk. But I just want to underscore what Inspector Gurr said. As much as I would love to argue with an anti-Israel activist, that's really what they want. they are attempting to provoke our community. They are attempting to portray our community as extreme. And we are not that. We are not extreme. We walk because we believe in what we believe and because we are who we are. But we're proud of who we are and we're open about who we are. And so we need to carry that attitude to the walk. And we need to recognize that when our adversaries go low, they're not winning over the mainstream. We know this from research that we've conducted. Canadians don't like extremism. Canadians, in fact, there was a poll that just came out about the encampment of U of T. A majority of Canadians, 3/4, don't support the encampment. They actually find it very objectionable. So when our opponents go low and when they take these extreme tactics, they are without question provoking and upsetting our community, but they're also alienating the mainstream. And we need to keep that in mind. And we need to ensure that our actions as a community at the walk reflect our values and who we are as Jews and as Canadians who believe in democracy and believe in our right to express our views peacefully and publicly. So with that, as Inspector Gurr shared, there are many things happening that we can't disclose publicly because our focus is on ensuring the safety of everyone at the walk. But I want to start by assuring you, absolutely, you can bring your kids, you can bring grandparents, you can bring everyone to the walk. We want to see you all there. My family will be there, and I wouldn't be there if we weren't safe. And so my advice to everyone is, please don't have any questions about security. You can always email us if you have specific questions. info@walkwithisrael.com. That's info@walkwithisrael.com. If you have any questions, send us an email and we'll respond as quickly as we can. But with that, Inspector Gurr, related to the walk, and frankly, not just the walk, but the protests in general, because we have a lot of questions about the protests. Is there anything else people should keep in mind? I mean, people are asking about hate speech, what constitutes hate speech. Obviously, it's very case-by-case specific, but can you speak to that issue? What is the posture of police when these protests take place and when there's, incendiary rhetoric that's coming out and really extreme statements coming out?
Thanks, Steve. That's a good question. There was actually an arrest made recently. Some of you may have been at the Nathan Phillips Square rally. It was a rally against anti-Semitism, and there was a protest group that did attend, and one of those people did get arrested. We actually had the evidence and were welcomed also by a citizen who also provided a complaint with some additional evidence. And so that was actually, I think it was only the second time in Canadian history that public incitement of hatred was actually laid. It's new territory, right? For a lot of we haven't had protests in this numbers where there's been this many angry people. So what I would encourage is, it's important for the community to be reporting hate crimes. And like I said, we've had over 1,000 hate crime calls, which is important. We've made 77 arrests. We've laid 200 charges. If you are the victim of a hate crime, or you know that somebody has been a victim of a hate crime, what I would ask is please report it. Please support each other and encourage others to report these hate crimes. Keep in mind that it's preferable if you're reporting a hate crime in Toronto to report it to Toronto. If you're in Thornhill, please report it to York Regional Police if you can. But that's a big one, right? Is if we don't know about it, then there's not much we can do about it. And again, at these protests, if you come to a protest to counter protest, you're not going to win an argument with somebody on the end of a megaphone, just like we discussed. That's not the time or place to have a conversation, because it's too loud and no one's listening. Is that helpful?
No, absolutely. And with that, and maybe because I know your time is tight today, Inspector, so maybe we have time for just one more question. But people were asking about the distance between the protesters and the walk. So I know obviously there are operational things that we can't discuss right now, but people are really asking, is there going to be a significant buffer between the people with the megaphone and my kids when I'm walking? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, we are going to try our best to create some distance. There will be an area designated for protesters. I won't say where that will be, but there will be an area because we know they're going to come. And our experience is if you frustrate the protesters too significantly, then they become creative. and it makes it more difficult. So it's sometimes better, like in the case of the Nathan Phillips Square event that we had a few weeks ago, we actually created an area because it was a public square where the protesters would be designated. And then they actually did go into that area, and that's where they were protesting from. So there will be some buffer, there will be some space. We will do our best. And like I said, if anyone attends the event with a criminal intent, they can expect to be arrested.
And I think that really underscores the importance of community members reporting when they see something happening that makes them uncomfortable or concerns them. I always say in these calls, we don't have to be lawyers or criminologists. We don't have to be experts. If we see something that we think might be criminal, we should contact police. It's the role of police to determine if the line has been crossed legally and to take action. But they can't do that unless we report it. So it's really important that people report these things. And I also think the record of Toronto Police really shows that the gathering of evidence and ensuring that when there are examples of incitement or hate speech, ensuring that there's a critical mass of evidence so that when someone is charged, that the charges hold up in court. I think that's a really important point because what's important for us is that if people are engaging in hate speech and crossing a criminal line, that accountability is really the result. And so certainly we appreciate and understand that there's a lot of work that has to go into that evidence gathering, and certainly the fact that there have been 77 people arrested since October 7th alone goes to show that there is accountability for those who are spreading this hate. But with that, do you have any other things that you think that would be important for us to know before we go into the walk? We're going to open up the call to broader questions about our efforts to combat anti-Semitism, but I know our friends at Toronto Police have a limited amount of time today. So, Inspector Gurr, any last words in terms of what we should know?
Well, one thing I do want to say is I want to emphasize the relationship that we've developed with the Federation. I also want to say that we've developed a lot of relationships with many other leaders in the community. Some leaders who weren't leaders before October 7th and then quickly found themselves to become leaders. And I want to say thank you to all of those people. You know who you are. We've been speaking quite a bit. And I want to say thank you for all of the work that you've been doing and all of the information that you've brought forward to make our deployments more efficient and more effective. When October 7th happened and we dropped those command vehicles, we had people coming to us in the hundreds to show support and say thank you to the Toronto Police for being there and stepping up as quickly as we did. And thanks to those people who did that, it means a lot to the officers when they hear that they're supported and that the work that they're doing is necessary and is felt toward the community safety and well-being of our community. So that's important for the community to know that we hear you. And the last thing I'm going to say is that we are in this together. So please don't ever feel otherwise. The chief has assured me, he has said it himself numerous times, we are in this together. So thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today, Steve, and the Federation and all of those on the meeting. And I look forward to speaking to you again, hopefully under better circumstances.
Thank you, Inspector. We really appreciate it, and wish you all the best for the rest of the day, and to the entire team at TPS for everything you're doing to keep us safe.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to open up the mic for the rest of the Q&A session. We've also got Noah Shack from our team on the line with us to answer your questions together. Noah is our Vice President of Countering Anti-Semitism and Hate, so you'll have seen him at some of our previous sessions. And I wanted to unpack some of the questions that we're getting. People are asking about online reporting. I really want to ensure people are aware there's a few ways that you can report a hate incident. First, if you see criminal activity, call 911 right away. Each police department has a non-emergency line as well. So in some cases, it might not be an emergency, but we can provide you with the non-emergency line. But the first thing you need to do is call police. If it's an incident of vandalism or graffiti, the police have also set up in Toronto a dedicated online portal where you can send a photo or submit a complaint. If you see a swastika on a street sign, for example, you can instantly go online and submit that report, and that's the fastest way to ensure it gets removed. And the police have a pretty quick system with the city to remove that graffiti. So we're going to share that link as well before the call is done. And then last but not least, notify UJA Community Security, because we're tracking incidents across the entire GTA. And what you saw on that street corner or in that neighborhood might be something that ties into a trend that we're tracking that's impacting the whole community. So the first thing you should do is call police. The second thing you should do is let UJA Community Security know. Again, you can do that by phone or online. The link is in the chat right now for the online reporting. But the 24/7 hotline for UJA Community Security is 416-635-5600. That's 416-635-5600. Noah, I'm going to ask you to come on camera if you're able to. We're going to get right into some of the questions. People are asking about this hate speech issue. Someone mentioned that the criminal code explicitly considers Holocaust denial a form of hate speech. Yes, that's the case, and that's a result of a law that was recently brought forward or is in the works. Noah, can you speak to this, the banning of Holocaust denial as a form of hate speech? Because it's a relatively new development for Canada.
This is a relatively recent addition to the hate speech laws that we have in Canada. It's something that CJA lobbied for a number of years ago and was passed by the government. And it's now a specific offense to essentially deny or distort the Holocaust as part of those hate promotion laws that are included in the criminal code. With our hate promotion laws, often they will require the sign-off from the provincial attorney general in order to permit charges to move forward and for those cases to be prosecuted. There's a really high threshold when it comes to speech crime in this country, because free speech is an important value. And as Inspector Gurr mentioned, a number of these criminal code provisions have either never been used or only been used a couple of times before. And in several respects, we're in relatively uncharted waters. And it's unfortunate that, as we've experienced so many times through our history, the Jewish community is once again the canary in the coal mine. And it's important that we see these laws enforced in the way that they were intended when they were drafted and passed into law, in order to keep hate from spreading and to keep Canadians safe. This is about a core Canadian value, not just in protecting speech, which is fundamental, but also protecting targeted groups from hatred. And that's a really critical thing at this time, Steve.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll just share with the walk is that because people are asking about kind of walk provisions and what we're doing to protect the walk. Look, what makes the walk unique is both a strength and something we have to plan for. What's unique about the walk is we want you to register, we want you to sign up and build a team, but technically you don't need that to join the walk. And we know there are many people who join the walk who didn't register. It's Bathurst Street. It's literally the public street. So the reality is we are dealing with the fact that this is an open event for the broader community, for Jews and allies of all communities to show up and show their support. We're dealing with that kind of open reality by ensuring we have massive security personnel presence. They will be our eyes and ears in order to identify anything that might be problematic or concerning, and to really point it to police right away if there is a security incident. But we're also relying on everyone just to be healthily vigilant. This is a time for us to recognize that if you see something that doesn't look right or seems out of place, trust your gut. Tell a security guard, tell a police officer who's nearby. It's for them to deal with, but if all of us who are just aware of these things are just a little bit more vigilant without being fearful, it'll enable security to do an even better job of keeping the walk safe and smooth. But we are grateful that Toronto Police have articulated that the walk is a priority for them. They're going to ensure that they have the forces that we need in order to ensure that our rights to freedom of assembly, to peaceful assembly, are protected and that we can proceed with the walk unimpeded. But I do want to not undermine the importance of registering. Please register. Register your family team, register your neighborhood team. Ensure you're not just at the walk, but at the post-walk event, and you need to register if you're going to come to the post-walk event. So please register, fundraise. All the dollars raised go to a great cause, helping people in Israel to recover from what happened. But even if you can't register, just show up and bring a friend.
Steve, I think I just want to add something here. I think that one of the greatest things that we can do to stand up to the hateful protesters that want to push us out of the public square and drown out our voices and silence us and intimidate us is to show up and stand shoulder to shoulder in numbers we've never seen before on the walk and march together in solidarity and in pride in who we are and what we represent. And I think that is a real statement in and of itself that's undeniable. And so, Inspector Gurr was talking about not trying to have a dialogue with somebody who's shouting through a megaphone. I think that's probably right. But we're making a loud statement with our feet on this walk and with our voices, as I've seen many years over the walk, people singing this is going to be a great opportunity for us to come together, and it's a time where it's important for us to come together for so many reasons. And I see there's a question in the chat about a demonstration that took place yesterday at U of T, which is another example of the power of us coming together. There were around 500 people who came down to U of T to stand shoulder to shoulder with staff, students, and faculty in the face of the shameful encampment that's taken root there. And to see this group come together, stand up for our values, stand up for what's right, for the administration to enforce its own policies and rules, and to ensure that the campus can be a safe and welcoming and, frankly, an environment where learning can take place for all students and for all faculty and everybody who needs to be there because they're part of that campus community. That was really powerful and important. And, I think we need to keep up the pressure. We need to keep those kinds of activities happening. And it's amazing to see so many community organizations and grassroots initiatives coming together in partnership to make things like that happen. And that's so important right now that we're all coming together to maximize these initiatives. And, when we're thinking about U of T in particular, right now is a time for action. We have our campus organization, our campus partner, Hillel Ontario, in consistent communication with the administration, reinforcing its core demands that it articulated before all of this unfolded, proactively recognizing what was on the horizon. We have our advocacy organization, CJA, looking at different legal remedies, also sharing concerns with the administration and with the president. But it's not just those organizations that are doing a lot of work to try to drive things forward to a more positive outcome here. There are a number of organizations that are actively involved, a number of grassroots initiatives that are taking action, and now's the time for all of us to do. So if you went to U of T, or you know somebody who went to U of T, now is the time for you to reach out to the president, to the administration. It's so important that they hear from people who are their stakeholders, who are part of the U of T community, whether it's present or past. If you're a student or you know someone who's a student at U of T, students have gone home. For most, it's the summertime. They've gone on to a whole bunch of interesting and exciting things that they're going to do over the summer. But we still need them to raise their voice and to weigh in on what's happening right now. And I encourage any students out there or anybody who knows students to encourage those students to reach out to Hillel Ontario and take part in some of the initiatives to push the administration to do what's right. And there have been a number of faculty groups that have taken a stand, who have spoken out, who are raising their concerns. They live on campus not just for 4 years for a degree. They're there for their profession. and they need support, and they need to be supported by the institution where they work. And it's really important that we organize and coordinate all of the amazing initiatives that are taking place and being formed. I know that there is a national faculty group that has come together, NECA, and if you are a faculty member and you're not familiar with them, we're happy to help connect you in with that initiative, because the reality is what's happening at U of T is not happening in isolation. There are a number of university campuses, of course, across Canada and the United States where these types of things are happening. And it's important that we are looking at this not just as something that's happening in downtown Toronto, which has us laser focused in, but as part of a broader phenomenon, and that we're cross-pollinating and sharing best practices and information and tactics, and that we are presenting a unified approach to dealing with this situation. And on that, I know I'm saying a lot right now, Steve, and I'll let you get in. I just want to share that, you know, these best practices, the lessons that have been learned by some of the horrific scenes that have taken place in the United States. You know, I know that Hill Ontario's offered a seminar to Canadian administrators, to the U of T administrators, to learn directly from the mistakes that have taken place in the United States on some of those campuses, so that they can deploy the best practices and not make those same mistakes, and not continue and deal with this situation in a way that's going to get us to a place where there's peace on campus, and where students can learn and faculty can teach and do research, and the university can be what it's supposed to be.
No, that's fantastic, Noah. And look, this has been the core message that UJA, Hillel, CJA have been saying to the U of T administration. I just want to weigh in and add, we are constantly communicating with the leadership of U of T, as well as the other, frankly, all of the universities in Canada through our network via CJA and Hillel, that the rules on campus need to be enforced, that it's very clear that what's happening at U of T is unsustainable. Rules are being broken. The university's own rules are being broken. And if there isn't enforcement, then extremists only become emboldened. So we are asking the university to take action. But to Noah's point, we've also called on the whole community to help us level that voice on the administration, so it knows this isn't just Jewish organizations telling the university to do the right thing. There are thousands of Jews who have connections to U of T, be they grads, be they parents of students, faculty, staff, and they're saying this is not acceptable and this has to be addressed. So we are continuing to carry that message, but we need everyone to send a message to the president of U of T without delay. I do want to also give a shout out to two additional events coming up. In addition to the Walk with Israel on June 9th, long before then, we're going to be celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut, and before that, we're going to be marking Yom HaZikaron. I really encourage everyone, if you're available Sunday evening, to join us for the official Yom HaZikaron memorial service being hosted by the Israeli consulate in Toronto and Western Canada. It'll be held here in Toronto. The location has not been announced, but if you register and sign up for it, you'll be able to receive the details on the location. This is taking place Sunday night at 6 p.m. You'll see in the chat, my colleague just dropped the link into the chat. Really want to encourage everyone, especially this year. This is an important year to mark Yom HaZikaron, Israeli Memorial Day, and to remember all who were murdered or killed on October 7th and since. So please mark your calendars Sunday evening for the consulate's Yom HaZikaron event. And then Monday evening, UJA together with the JCCs and with Mizrahi Canada are all coming together for a special Yom HaZikaron memorial combined with the transition to Yom Ha'atzmaut Monday evening. So there'll be a wonderful event for community on Sunday night to remember the fallen, and then on Monday night to transition from mourning to celebration. So I'll ask my colleagues to drop that event into the chat as well. Save the date, Sunday night and Monday night, to mark these really two important dates in the Jewish calendar. I do want to address, because I think it was addressed briefly by Inspector Gurr, and a number of people have asked in the chat about the role of the police and U of T. And I spoke with Inspector Gurr about this yesterday as well in advance of this call. And I just want to be like just to be clear with everyone, when it comes to an on-campus situation like the one that U of T is grappling with right now, U of T administration and U of T security has primary responsibility for the situation. Now, that's not to say that police can't arrest someone if they see a crime in progress on campus. That can happen. So police will intervene, for example, if they see clear example of law being broken or violence or whatnot. But in terms of the negotiations with the encampment, the police are not at the center of that. That is going on between the administration and their security personnel. And really, police are going to have to seek their guidance from the administration, because at the end of the day, we know what's being said about Israel and about Jews at the encampments, but whether or not laws are being broken is a different question. And so far, the administration has taken the view that as long as the encampment remains peaceful, they're not going to remove it. Obviously, we take strong issue with that. We disagree with that view, and we've made that very clear via Hillel and CJ to the administration that that's not acceptable, and that this is a huge problem and a growing problem on campus that's only going to get worse if you don't address it head on. But I just want to be very clear. Police exist to keep the whole city safe. In terms of negotiating with the encampment and figuring out how to address the encampment, it's U of T that is responsible for that. And of course, they have policing partners that they can call on if they feel that laws are being broken on campus and that a police response is required. So this is a very complicated, sticky situation, but nevertheless, we feel that what's happening is absolutely beyond the pale and it needs to end right now. Because we've seen what happens in the United States when these things aren't addressed head on, they only get worse, and the risk of serious escalation is very much there. Noah, is there anything else that we should add before we wrap up? We've got lots of questions. And folks, I'm so sorry, we get more questions in these calls and we can address it in a single hour. So please, if we didn't get your question, email us info@jewishtoronto.com. We'll do our best to respond as quickly as possible. But we do end up getting more questions in these calls that we can handle in a single hour. So Noah, is there anything further that you think we should add before we wrap up?
I know that there's a question that I just see at the bottom of the list, which is in front of me, about unions and OPSEU in particular. And I want to give a shout out to the Jewish members of OPSEU and some non-Jewish members who've joined them, who were very active in the months leading up to their annual meeting in mobilizing against BDS. And standing strong and advancing their own motions at that convention to make sure that Jewish members are being represented and are taking action. That kind of activism is what we need to be doing, whether it's within a union or across the board in our community. And I know that there's a question about what's being done there, and I just want to give credit where it's due, and that's to those OPSEU members in our community who have stood up and been a model for how we can organize and have impact. The last thing that I'll mention is that I know there's been a lot of conversation about an incident that's been gaining traction on social media about the York Region District School Board. Yesterday, an email surfaced on social media where a senior administrator from the YRDSB quoted an explanation provided by a committee that's responsible for their multi-faith calendar. A menorah had been chosen as the selected image to represent Jewish holidays on that calendar. And this email passing along an explanation said that it was chosen because that symbol has a purely religious significance, while a Star of David carries political connotations with the State of Israel. Now, this is a third-party calendar that YRDSB was subscribing to, and they've used that menorah symbol for several years. But obviously, that rationale that's provided is completely unacceptable. I mean, the reason that there's a Magen David on the flag of Israel is because it's a Jewish symbol, and it's no different than dozens of other countries' flags that feature a cross or a crescent. A number of organizations reached out to the YRDSB immediately. In particular, a shout out to Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, who did a lot of important work on this. And this morning, the director issued a statement announcing they'll be changing their online calendar, taking immediate action to make a correction. and expressing regret for the harmful impact on our community, and of course for the content of that email message that was circulating online. There's a lot of work for us to do to ensure that our community's position is safe, and that those who want to marginalize us do not get any ground. I think it's an important thing to mention that the York Region Board is taking immediate action to fix this situation and recognizes the impact that it has on our community.
Thank you for that, Noah. We're now past the 1 o'clock mark, so I'm gonna wrap up the call and just remind people, email us at info@jewishtoronto.com if you have any questions. And again, I just want to encourage everyone, save the date, June 9th, for the Walk with Israel. Please go to walkwithisrael.com to register, to build a team, to fundraise. This is one of those walks where we need as many people as possible if we want to send a strong message about our values as a community and who we are at this really difficult moment for Israel, but also for Jews worldwide. And as well, I want to encourage people, bring an ally. If you have someone in your network who wouldn't normally come to the Walk with Israel, might not receive UJA emails, but they've reached out to you to say that they're supportive, ask them to come with you and to walk with you that day. We are actively reaching out to allies beyond our community to ensure it's not only a Jewish voice, but a broader Canadian voice in support of Israel at the Walk. So again, if you have friends, colleagues, or neighbors who've reached out to express support, invite them to join and to walk with you. With that, we are going to wrap up today's session. We will be sharing this video with our community in our upcoming newsletter. So if there was something we shared that you want to share that with someone else, or share this recording with another group, please keep an eye on your inbox, because we're going to send you the full recording. Thank you, Noah, and thank all of you for joining us today. And keep in touch and stay tuned for the next webinar. Thank you.
And see you at the Walk.
See you at the Walk.